In today's video on hip impingement, I'm going to cover two major topics. The first is a paper that proves that hip impingement surgery is effective and good for your hips over a 10-year period. It's a paper that a critic sent to me via email, and I was initially very dismissive of it, and I didn't dive into its details enough. And that was a big mistake. By diving into the details of this hip impingement research study, I found something that I really didn't expect to find. So in this video, we're going to talk about that study. We're going to talk about what I missed, the mistake I made, and the actual conclusions we can draw about hip impingement surgery based on the research. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. I'm going to link to the study we're discussing in this video in the description box, but here it is right on screen. In the summary of this study, they highlight the fact that a hip preservation rate after 10 years is decent, so less than 10% of patients who underwent FAI surgery needed to get full hip replacement, which I guess is a good thing, although you could read that as 10% of people who do it end up needing hip replacement. But in any case, that's what the person who sent me this study is harping about. He said, look, this study, the summary proves that the surgery is a good idea, and therefore, Matt, you are a liar. Before we dive a little deeper into this study, you need a little more context. The person who emailed me this study also taunted me in the email and said that I blocked him on YouTube because I was scared of him. The thing is, he sees himself as really good at doing research that proves me wrong, except he made a habit of posting papers and studies on my channel comments that he hadn't vetted himself and hadn't bothered to read beyond the summary. And so I eventually blocked him from my channel because it was really clear he wasn't actually trying to learn anything. He was just trying to get one up on me and insult me in any which way he could. And anytime I bothered to respond to his research, he didn't even read it. One example of this is when he posted a paper out of China that claimed that FAI surgery was highly effective for hip pain, when in fact the paper was riddled with inaccuracies, statistical manipulations, and just plain clerical errors. There were fully unreadable paragraphs that had so many grammatical mistakes you couldn't tell what they were trying to say, and they duplicated the data of one study twice and counted all that data, even though it was super clear that the data was being counted twice. So their statistics, their calculations were all totally off. I'll link to that research and the video in the description box down below. So when I received this insulting and taunting email from this brilliant researcher, I clicked through to the link to see what the study said, and as I mentioned before, the summary said, hey, 91% of the hips are preserved, meaning they don't have to get worse surgery within 10 years with FAI surgery. And I thought to myself, this doesn't really prove that the surgery is a good idea. And I told him that. I said, hey, this doesn't actually prove that the surgery is good. You need to look at patient-rated outcomes. And I shared a few links and said, look at these, and if you still disagree with me, I don't think we're going to find any way to come to any sort of agreement, because we clearly just see the world differently. So what is a patient-rated outcome measure? Well, basically it's when you ask a patient how they feel about certain specific metrics after the surgery. For example, you might ask them, how does it feel when you sit? Do you feel no pain, mild pain, moderate pain, severe pain? Or they might ask you to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 something like, how worried are you about your hip pain? These patient-rated outcome measures can help determine whether or not a patient actually got any improvement from the surgery, because maybe their range of motion was really painful before surgery and maybe after it's much better. There are various patient-rated outcome measure questionnaires that they use with different questions, but there's one that's really important, and that is PASS, or Patient Acceptable Symptom State, which we'll talk about shortly. Hey, if you've been enjoying this video, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons right now. From now to the end of 2024, I'm going to be counting up all the likes and subscribes that my channel gets, and for every single one, I'm going to donate 1 cent to the Wounded Warriors Foundation. You can help me, help them. Just hit that like and that subscribe button. 2 cents goes to that charity. Thanks so much. Let's get back to the video. I made a mistake when I just took a quick look at the research that he sent me. I thought, hey, they're not looking at patient-rated outcomes, so this is not really helpful. Look at studies with patient-rated outcomes. But when I took a deeper look at this paper, I discovered I was wrong. They did look at patient-rated outcomes, they just didn't mention them in the summary. And when you look at patient-rated outcomes, you actually get a stunningly different view of the surgery than what they put in the summary. In this study, they kept track of something called PASS, or patient acceptable symptom state. And that's basically when you ask a patient, hey, now that you have done the surgery, how do you feel? Does it feel like your symptoms are in an acceptable state? In other words, are you pretty much satisfied with the way the surgery turned out? Yes or no? It's a pretty crude but useful tool to gauge whether or not a surgery is successful. It's much better, for example, than using arbitrary scores like the IHOT 33, where surgeons get to grade and mark and also massage the questions to make surgery look good. Asking a patient whether their symptoms are acceptable now basically tells you whether or not they're satisfied. So when they looked at that in this study, if the surgery is successful to fix hip impingement and clear your symptoms, you should see some pretty high pass rates. What's really funny about this study is they didn't actually ask the pass question. They didn't say, hey, are you satisfied with your symptom state? Instead, they asked them a whole bunch of other questions and then tabulated their scores and then determined an arbitrary cutoff number, which you can bet was a little bit biased to increase the number of people who achieved pass. And then they said, hey, here's the scores and here's how many people achieved pass. So this is a really weird way to do it. I'll make a more detailed video on it, but for now, just assume that their pass scores and the number of people who pass are reasonably accurate. So before I tell you what percentage of patients actually achieved pass and actually felt like, yeah, my symptoms are acceptable now post-surgery, I want you to guess what percentage actually achieved pass. Let me know in the comment section down below what percentage of people in this study you think achieved pass and felt like, yes, my symptoms from hip pain, they've been cleared, everything is acceptable. Did you put the number in the comment section down below? Because I'm about to spoil it for you. In this study, they found that less than 50% of the patients who had hip surgery to fix hip impingement achieved a patient acceptable symptom state. In other words, less than 50% of patients were satisfied with the outcome of the surgery. Their symptoms in terms of daily life and in sports and recreational activities did not get to such an improvement that they were satisfied. In other words, the majority of patients who underwent hip surgery for hip impingement did not feel satisfied with the amount of relief they got from the surgery. Of course, the guy who sent me this study did what many people do, including doctors. He didn't read beyond the abstract and didn't bother to dive in with a critical eye. He accepted the top-line summary of, yes, the surgery to fix your hip pain from hip impingement is great, it's good for you, it creates improvement, and it's long lasting. Your hips will not need to be replaced within 10 years. But if you ask the patients whether they are satisfied with the way their symptoms are after surgery, the answer is a majority say no. What's super interesting is that these same dissatisfaction rates show up in other studies on hip impingement surgery, so this doesn't seem like a fluke. There are 2 other studies that I'm aware of that looked at satisfaction rates as rated by patients, and you'll see them in the description box down below. In both of those studies, they showed more than 50% of patients are not satisfied. They do not have their expectations met by hip surgery to fix hip impingement. So to drive the point home, 3 studies show that more than half of patients who get hip impingement surgery are not satisfied with the results. That's not something that's part of the informed consent process currently. Doctors and surgeons, even reputable websites, will often say that there's an 80 to 90% success rate because they're looking at some of these top-line summaries, but not looking at the actual satisfaction rates that the patients are reporting. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that hip impingement surgery doesn't ever work. Based on these studies, some people, the minority, do feel like they achieve an acceptable symptom state. I'm very happy that some people get good results from surgery. It's way better than the alternative. The problem is the alternative, the bad outcome where you still have pain, where you're still having problems, even though you did this invasive surgery or minimally invasive surgery, is far worse. Imagine you have been told by a bunch of voices that this surgery is the way to fix your hip pain. You get the surgery and you're still in the same symptom state. Now realize that based on multiple studies, that's the majority outcome. That means you have a minority of people who are getting a good result, talking about it loudly, telling everybody that's the only possible way to fix your hip pain. But in reality, a majority of people who undergo this procedure don't actually achieve the result they want. And throughout the process, nobody is actually telling them the actual satisfaction rates, even though they're available in the literature. That to me is a massive oversight and a massive failure in the informed consent process. If you're gonna tell people that a surgery is gonna fix their hip pain, you better tell them what the actual patient satisfaction rates are, not the inflated numbers that surgeons use to claim improvement. Because the improvement scores, as I've talked about in other videos, can be really manipulated and massaged to show minimal clinically important differences, which are just arbitrarily set by the surgeons running the studies that help promote the surgeries that they do. So some key takeaways here are, number one, you need to actually read the studies that allegedly prove that hip impingement surgery is good for you and that it's effective. When you're doing any sort of research, you need to actually read the full literature to understand what's going on, because sometimes, many times, there are shenanigans going on. Number two takeaway is, if you have hip impingement symptoms, and even if you have the FAI bone shapes or not, it's a good idea to put on your critical thinking cap and think about what you can control, what you can do to improve your situation yourself. Because, as I've covered in many previous videos, all of the research, from the diagnostic tests to the predictive value of the test to the predictive value of the presence of the FAI bone shapes and how it relates to arthritis. Spoiler alert, hip impingement bone shapes do not show any correlation to arthritis or hip pain. To the dismal satisfaction results we see with surgery, as we've covered in this video, it really seems like the medical system has lost the thread when it comes to hip pain, and you might benefit from doing something besides surgery first. And if you can fix your hip pain yourself with exercise, you're gonna be way ahead of the game. You'll have saved money and saved yourself a lot of heartbreak and potential damage from the surgery itself. And I'm not saying that lightly. There's actually research that shows that getting surgery on your hip will be worse for your cartilage than if you do absolutely nothing. I will link to the video I did on that research in the description box down below. The number three takeaway is you should try exercising. Look at all kinds of different resources. Look at what I've put out there. Look at what other people have put out there on hip impingement. Find resources, find voices that help you with your issues. I'm not magical. I am not your messiah. I've got ideas. I have experience with my own hips and hips from clients and students, but that doesn't mean I have all the answers. And in fact, I know in many cases, I don't have all the answers. So search, go look, go on Instagram, go on YouTube, find different exercises, stretches, strength work, all kinds of different ideas that'll help you restore proper hip function. If you really commit yourself to training your hip muscles and retraining how you move your whole body, you have a good chance of improving your symptoms and achieving PASS. Unfortunately, nobody can tell you the actual percentage chance because no one's done the research, because there's clearly no money and no funding for that. A single orthopedic surgery is gonna generate thousands of dollars of revenue. The surgeon's gonna make a bunch of money. The device manufacturers make a bunch of money. We're talking about $1 billion industry that can fund research that promotes itself. Some yahoo like me who's promoting exercise and saying, hey, here are inexpensive ways to fix your body. Yahoos like me don't make anywhere near as much money as surgeons because there's no money in telling people they can fix themselves. So we don't usually have the money or the influence to create and publish these studies in reputable journals. Those journals, by the way, get their funding from device manufacturers. Nah, medical journals couldn't possibly be influenced by all the revenue they generate from ads and sponsorships from pharmaceutical companies and orthopedic device manufacturers, could they? If this video has helped you in any way, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That support helps spread the word and helps people make better decisions about their hip health. If you want to support future content like this, go to uprighthealth.com/donate for some simple, easy options. Get the Healthy Hips program to help yourself, or click the join and thanks buttons on YouTube. Whatever support you want to give me, I appreciate. I'm doing the best I can to spread helpful, hopeful information. I've got some more free videos that'll probably help you right here. As always, I hope you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't.